Honeycomb is absolutely amazing and endlessly fascinating. Bees didn't just invent honey. Without ever taking a math class, they solved an ancient geometry problem and built one of the smartest, most efficient structures on the planet. It's fragile, it's temporary, and yet it quietly holds up entire ecosystems and a huge slice of our food supply. This is the miracle of honeycomb, and once you know how it really works, you'll never look at a jar of honey the same way again. When you imagine a hive, you probably think of bees buzzing around outside. But the real story is happening on the inside, on walls made entirely of wax. Honeycomb is the bees' all-in-one skyscraper, pantry, nursery, storage unit, and structural scaffolding, all wrapped into one repeating pattern. Those pale golden sheets of comb are made from pure beeswax and packed with tiny hexagonal rooms. In some of them, the queen lays eggs and the colony raises its young. In others, bees pollen, nectar, and finally ripe honey. The entire hive is organized around these wax corridors. It's not just storage. Honeycomb is the physical frame that holds bee society together. And the wild part is that the building material doesn't come from trees or mud or leaves. It comes from the bees themselves. Only a specific age group of worker bees, basically the middle schoolers of the hive, roughly 12 to 18 days old, are in their prime wax-making era. Their bodies are fitted with special wax glands tucked into the underside of the abdomen. At the right temperature, around the low 30s Celsius, these glands convert sugar from honey into liquid wax. As it hits the air, that wax hardens into tiny, clear scales that look like glassy chips. Other workers scrape those scales off with their legs, pass them up like a bucket brigade, chew them to soften the wax, and finally press it into place. It's a whole production line made entirely of bees. So while we see a finished honeycomb and think, oh, pretty, inside the hive, it starts as a rain of microscopic wax plates falling off the bellies of very busy insects. Those young wax factory bees gorge on nectar, cluster in warm chains, and literally sweat out the building blocks of their city. Once they age out of this phase, the glands shrink, and they graduate to guarding the entrance or foraging outside. It's like a construction internship that only lasts a few days, but the whole future of the hive depends on it. Now here's where the miracle gets even stranger. When bees first start building comb, they don't lay down neat little hexagons like robot engineers. Researchers who looked closely found that the earliest cells are more rounded, almost cylindrical. As the bees keep adding wax and warming the area with their bodies, those soft, round walls start pushing against each other. Physics joins the party. Surface tension and the way wax flows at warm temperatures help pull the shared walls into straight lines. As the cells jostle and even out, the messy circles snap into a grid of hexagons. Bees are guiding the process, but they're also letting the material and the heat do a surprising amount of the work. People have been obsessed with this pattern for centuries. In ancient Rome, a beekeeper named Varro already suspected that the hexagon was the most efficient shape for bees, the one that saved the most wax while storing the most honey. Much later, mathematicians turned that hunch into a formal problem called the honeycomb conjecture. It wasn't until the 1990s that Thomas Hales finally proved it. If you want to divide a surface into equal areas using the shortest possible total wall length, you end up with a hexagonal grid. That means bees, just by doing what works, landed on a layout that uses the least building material for the most storage. They're not drawing equations on the hive wall, but their architecture lines up with some very serious math. For the bees, this matters a lot. Wax is one of the most expensive things they make, metabolically speaking. Every gram of wax represents a big investment of honey. A hexagonal lattice lets them stretch that investment as far as possible, packing in honey and brood while keeping the structure light, stiff, and strong. Engineers noticed, today, we copy the same pattern in everything from aircraft components to lightweight panels and even packaging materials, because honeycomb structures give you high strength with very little material. When you see the inside of a high-tech honeycomb panel, it's literally a homage to the bee's design. If you zoom in closer, the details get even more impressive. Each sheet of comb is double-sided. There are cells on both faces, and they're offset so that the walls don't line up perfectly back to back. That staggered stacking adds strength while keeping everything incredibly light. The axes of the cells are almost horizontal, but not quite. From the base of each cell to its open end, there's a small upward tilt, usually in the range of about 9 to 14 degrees. That little incline helps keep nectar and honey from running straight out, and research shows it also shifts some of the weight off the side walls and onto the shared central midwall, making the whole sheet more load-bearing. It's like the bees have designed a tiny, slanted bookshelf where every book helps hold up the shelf itself. The comb is also zoned like a city. Toward the center, you'll find worker brood cells, slightly smaller and tightly packed. Around those, there are often larger cells for drones, and here and there, dramatic queen cells that look like hanging peanuts where new queens are raised. Farther out and higher up, the bees store surplus honey. As seasons change, they'll refill, empty, and repurpose cells, constantly renovating their wax skyscraper. Even though the entire structure is made from something that can soften in the sun, in the controlled climate of the hive, it's stable enough to hold tens of thousands of bees, leaders of honey, and their future brood all at once. But this miracle building doesn't last forever. In the wild, a bee colony living in a tree cavity might survive around 6 years on average before it dies out or moves on. When that happens, the bee's wax infrastructure gets recycled. Wax moths, beetles, rodents, and other scavengers move in and chew through the old comb, clearing out contaminants and making room for the next colony. It's nature's demolition crew. In managed hives, it's the beekeeper's job to play that role. The wooden frames that hold the comb might last a decade or more, but the comb itself slowly darkens and fills with old cocoons, spores, and chemical residues. Many modern beekeepers now aim to rotate out roughly a quarter of their comb each year, so that no piece stays longer than 3 to 5 years. It's like changing the air filters in your house, but for bees, it's about disease, chemicals, and long-term health. All of that would be a neat, self-contained story if bees weren't under pressure from almost every direction right now. In the last few seasons, beekeepers in the US have reported record losses. One major survey found that more than half of managed colonies, over 55%, were lost between spring 2023 and spring 2024. Other reports show annual losses pushing 60%, with economic damage estimated in the hundreds of millions of dollars from lost honey production, pollination income, and the cost of rebuilding dead hives. Ask beekeepers what keeps them up at night, and you'll hear the same villain again and again: Varroa mites. These tiny parasites latch onto bees and suck their body fluids, weakening them, and even worse, they act like dirty needles, spreading a whole cocktail of viruses through the colony. At the same time, bees are dealing with pesticide exposure. Some of those chemicals get into wax and stay there, plus habitat loss, monoculture agriculture that offers poor nutrition, and climate stress that scrambles flowering times and weather patterns. Even though classic colony collapse disorder is reported less now than it was a decade ago, pollinator declines overall are still a big red warning light for ecosystems and agriculture alike. The good news is that honeycomb isn't just a symbol of the problem, it's also part of the solution. Cleaner comb means healthier hives. Beekeepers who deliberately rotate out old, contaminated comb help reduce disease pressure and chemical buildup, giving bees a fresher wax canvas to raise brood and store food. Farmers and gardeners who cut back on the harshest pesticides and plant a wider variety of flowering plants make it easier for bees to gather the nectar and pollen they need to fuel wax production and keep the hive thriving. On a bigger scale, protecting habitat and reducing the stress we pile on pollinators gives them the breathing room to do what they're insanely good at: building perfect, shimmering architecture and turning sunlight and flowers into food. So the next time you see a piece of honeycomb in a jar or on a cheese board, remember what you're looking at. It's not just a pretty pattern. It's a self-assembled, double-sided, hexagonal megastructure built by young bees sweating wax scales out of their bodies, shaped by physics, refined by millions of years of evolution, and constantly maintained by an entire superorganism. It's a miracle that quietly holds up our orchards, our crops, and a lot of what ends up on our plates. Protect the bees, protect their hives, and protect their honeycomb, and that golden little pattern keeps working its magic for all of us. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe to help us continue to build our channel and share information and updates about wildlife.